Okay, this is section 5 talking about plant reproduction. So we'll start with the non-seed plants. So bryophytes use swimming sperm in order to reach what we call an ovum or an egg. So they have to have water in order to do this, which is why they usually live in pretty moist or really watery conditions anyway. So that sperm has a flagella, allows it to swim and reach that egg to fertilize it. In seedless vascular, they use a spore. So what they're going to do is actually alternate between two different types of adult plants. So a diploid, which is going to have the full chromosomal set, or the haploid adult. And in the haploid state, they're going to have half the number of chromosomes, and they're only going to be making their sex cells, whether it's sperm or whether it's egg. And they'll have to then use that to fertilize one or the other, and then it'll grow into a diploid, and it'll just kind of keep cycling back and forth between the two. So seed plants have a seed in order to reproduce, and the seed has three parts. It has an embryo, which you can kind of see pictured here, and this is where your brand new plant is actually going to start to grow. So as soon as that seed is, fertilized and conditions are proper, it's going to start growing. And it's going to feed off of what we call the food store or the endosperm. So it's basically stored sugar reserves, stored carbs, and that's actually what it can live off of then while it's growing. And then the seed coat protects the whole entire seed. So again, it'll keep it nice and safe through, droughts, winters, things like that. Many plants will use a flower, and a lot of those are, remember, the angiosperm type. So basically the flower is a way to attract a pollinator in order to then spread the pollen to various other plants, where it can then fertilize an egg and grow a new plant. So there's four parts to flowers. There is what we call the sepal. Those are the green leaves that usually sit under the flower, and they're going to actually enclose those nice petals kind of before the flower blooms. The petals then are the colorful fun part that helps attract the pollinators using both color and scent. So a lot of times it'll be just the color that attracts the pollinator. Other times it'll be kind of a combination of both. The male part of the flower is called the stamen. That's actually how you can remember it. The word men is in this word, so that's the male portion, and it has two parts. The anther, which is actually holding the pollen, and then a long structure called the filament. And the filament makes sure that the anther gets high enough up off the flower so that the pollen can actually get hit by the pollinators. And then the female part of the plant is called the carpel, also known as the pistil. And this is the part that's actually going to make the egg. And that part has three separate parts. So there's a stigma, also known as the sticky stigma. This is what the pollen's actually going to stick to. A style, which is a long tube that's going to go down into the ovary. And then the ovary is what's actually holding the egg. So we'll take a look at this here in an overall picture. So here in the middle is the female structure. Okay, so this is the pistil. Up top we have the sticky stigma. That's where the pollen's going to stick to. The style is the tube that kind of leads down here into the ovary, and then your egg, your ovum, would sit right here in the middle of this ovary. Here is the male parts, and you can see we have 6 of them on this one. So the stamen, it has the anther, which is holding all the pollen, and then the filament is the long tube that makes sure that those stay up really high, nice and out of the flower. Same thing with the stigma. We want that sticking up and out pretty far, again, so that pollen can hit it and stick to it, and we can fertilize our egg. And then here we have the petals and then the sepal, which are the green parts of the flower that are going to protect the bud, so before the flower blooms. And here's a picture of an actual flower. So you've probably seen this before, but here's the female part. So there's the sticky stigma and her style. And then here's the stamen. And there's the anther holding all the little pollen granules, and then the filament. So, and again, just from a little different angle, you can kind of see how shiny the stigma is. It's because it's going to try and grab that pollen. So what happens is your pollinator comes in, and it hopefully will get that pollen stuck all over its hairs, just like this cute little honeybee down here at the bottom. You can see the little pollen granules sticking to its hairs. And then it'll fly to another plant, or it'll even just touch the stigma on the same plant. And that stigma, or excuse me, that pollen sticks, and it grows then a tube. And that tube goes all the way down the style, down into the ovary, where it's going to then fertilize that ovum. And eventually that ovum becomes what we call the seed. Okay, so it's like the fertilized, healthy new plant. And then the ovary around it is what would develop into a fruit. And again, here's just another picture showing kind of the fertilization process. So here's the pollen hitting the stigma. We grow a pollen tube. Here's my ovules or my eggs down here. And we have more than just one sitting down here in this case. And they all get fertilized. And then the ovary just kind of grows around it. And here is our new, fertilized embryo, I guess you could say, feeding off of then that endosperm of the seed. So just a little different way of looking at it kind of down in this ovary part. So, all right, and that covers reproduction of plants.